I'd like to say this video is a bit more positive because it's actually giving credit where credit's due. Rachel Scott, she is a political correspondent with ABC News. I think she's actually the chief political correspondent with ABC News. She's only 31 and she is the reporter who's been identified as asking Putin, will he stop killing civilians? Her precise words were, Mr. President, will you commit to stop killing civilians in Ukraine? No, notably what happened at this kind of impromptu press thing, not impromptu, but this sit down at the Elmendorf Richardson Joint Air Force Base or Joint Base Elmendorf Richardson in Alaska. Um, yeah, they'd sat down and reporters were asking questions, and granted, they were shouting over each other. So Putin pretended not to hear. He kind of made a gesture to that effect, like he couldn't hear. I think Putin has a reasonable grasp of the English language. I don't think he's completely ignorant of it. I've seen a few videos of him speaking in English, so I think he has enough of a grasp of the English language to know damn well what her question was. Because she was one of the louder reporters, you could clearly hear it. I don't think it's the best set up having reporters shout over one and the another like that, but I give her credit. She's not mincing her words, she's getting straight to the point. There's no euphemisms. She gets straight in there. The First Lady, Melania Trump, has written a letter to Putin speaking about how much children need to be cherished and basically touching on the kidnapped Ukrainian children. But I got the impression it was heavy on diplomacy, i.e., the First Lady was cautious not to offend Putin. So I don't know. I give her some credit for that. I guess it's not a bad thing what she done, but I think we need to say that those who will confront Putin directly deserve respect. Contrast this with Brian Glenn. He is the so called reporter who lectured President Zelensky about his choice of uniform or about the fact that he wasn't wearing a suit. I mean, that's not journalism, and he was there exposed as a Trump sycophant and a media personality. I mean, Rachel Scott's a real journalist. She is a credit to her profession, and Putin was probably never going to answer that question. But the fact that she asked it is very important. Now, realistically, an American journalist in the United States is relatively safe. But Russian journalists are paid with their lives. Many others are in prison. So there are implications to that. And so for a prominent American journalist to do her job, to put it to the Russian dictator, why, when are you going to stop doing this? When are you going to stop killing civilians? I suspect Putin heard that full well. Trump would certainly have heard it. Um, she showed a lot more guts than Donald Trump has ever done when it comes to Putin. I give her a lot of credit for that. The fact that she's black and a woman, I wouldn't weigh too much on that. Some sources are saying the black female reporter. If she'd been a white man, I'd be giving him credit. So let's not get too much into identity politics. Let's just give her credit for being a good journalist and doing her job. Um, yeah, I just want to put it out there. I'll put a little sequence of the video now. Granted, it's a little bit chaotic, journalists are shouting over one another, but I would say what she said was pretty clear. I'd say what she said was pretty clear. Remember, in Russia, Putin's basically immune from criticism. He occasionally takes these press conferences where Russians ask mundane, everyday questions, but you can tell it's sanitized. So there's never any questions that are too difficult. Um, Putin's a tyrant. That's the way he operates. And Trump was just sitting there, sort of looking like that kind of spaced out look he sometimes has. It's yeah. But I'll put a link to the video. I give Rachel Scott credit, and some people might say, "Oh, well, she asked Zelensky the same question." Zelensky hasn't been deliberately killing civilians. Zelensky hasn't kidnapped thousands of Russian children. Already on one of these reports, I was talking about Putin apologists earlier. There was a woman, I think she might have been Serbian, so that might explain it, but she was talking about, well, Zelensky apologized for all the Russian civilians he's killed, and, stuff like this is just this poisonous distortion of the reality. It's Russia that invaded Ukraine, it's not Ukraine that invaded Russia. Um, and I just think it's a waste of time trying to reason with people like this. I looked at her profile briefly. I wasn't going to troll her or anything like that. I could, I wouldn't give someone like that too much of the time of day, but I was curious because it stood out. The comments stood out. lo and behold, it's full of anti-vaccine stuff and other conspiracy theories, and it just, you know, I just I find it very difficult to respect people who try to claim they have a moral high ground, yet they praise Putin. It's just a contradiction. Um, Anyway, Rachel Scott, thank you for doing your job. And she is a stark contrast to Brian Glenn, who is a Trump lackey, who didn't do his job. Now, to be clear, I don't say that Zelensky shouldn't face tough questions. He's a president. I think any leader should face tough questions, including Zelensky. I mean, right now there is some Ukrainian unease about some internal scandals going on in Ukraine, but frankly, I wouldn't weigh too much on that. I mean, if the Ukrainian people decide that they've had enough of Zelensky, that's up to them. And the fact of the matter is, Ukraine has had, what, four or five presidents in the time that Russia has effectively had one. You barely count Putin Medvedev tandem because it was a setup. Um, it was always orchestrated so that Putin would be pulling the strings. So if you want to see which country is more democratic, it's clearly Ukraine. This is not to say that Ukraine doesn't have problems. Pre-war Ukraine had plenty of problems. There was deep anger in Ukrainian society about corruption. It was, let's be honest, a corrupt country. But the day that Russia invaded Ukraine, any arguments against Ukraine just fell flat. I mean, that is the bottom line. Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia doesn't even recognize Ukrainian sovereignty. So I just find it very hard to keep my cool with apologists for that who want to try and blame the victims. And anyway, Rachel Scott, fine journalist, and she deserves credit for doing her job.